All right, so I'm going to call to order the September 9th, 2020 Employee Personnel Committee. First thing on our agenda, second thing on the agenda is approval of minutes. And we take a
motion to approve.
Thank you. And are we saying we don't need a second for committees of 3? I always thought it was if there's only 2 people of a committee of 3. That's okay.
Yeah, I think.
So any discussion on that?
Yeah, I have a couple of notes. First thing is that on the first page of the minutes, Clowder is actually spelled wrong under 2A.
Okay.
Oh.
Thank you. Good catch.
Yeah, and then I also wanted to add a couple of notes to the hazard pay discussion.
Sure.
So just a couple of things that we discussed. We talked about sick leave and what COVID protections full or part-time employees have in terms of sick leave and how that doesn't extend to poll workers. We talked about workers' comp and the fact that it does extend to poll workers, but it's unlikely to be able to prove that any sort of illness was tied to the polls directly. And then I think the final thing that we discussed was poll worker pay in other municipalities that are of similar size. And I think that at that meeting we discussed needing to find out what that rate was to see if we were on par with other municipalities of a similar size.
Okay, very good. I'll add all of those.
And that's all for me.
Okay, anything from you, Tom?
No.
Okay. The one thing that I wanted to say is always appreciate good note taking for minutes. This is the public record of what happened, and to have it say more than just, we talked about this, we voted on this, it passed, is, I really appreciate detailed minutes. So I wanted to say that. So all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
So that passes. Then we have any public appearances for non-agenda items? Anyone around?
No one in the hall, Madam Chairman.
Nope.
Okay, thank you. And then on to agenda items, we have Chad Brecklin here to discuss Police Department Policy Manual update. Discussion regarding Police Department Policy Manual notification and information for personnel only, no action needed. Floor is yours, Chad.
So good evening again, everybody. Hope everyone is staying dry with the rainy weather the last couple of days, and we're certainly well into fall, it seems, with the temperature as well. So I think that everybody had an opportunity either through their role in a mission, through finance, public safety, or on their council 2 weeks ago now, to talk about the policy and procedure manual update we are about to embark on. If there's any additional questions, I will also, I won't get into the entire thing again. I think that if anybody is watching the meeting from afar, certainly check out public safety meeting from 2 weeks ago as of last night, and or the finance committee meeting or the full council meeting, getting sort of backstory on the project and so forth. I do also want to thank you 3 alders amongst your peers as well, for the support that you provided to this project in the vote 2 weeks ago. It does mean a lot to not only me, but also our employees to see that our city council supported an initiative like this. Thank you very much. But if anyone has any questions or wants to talk about anything that's come up since that meeting a couple weeks ago, by all means, let me know. Go ahead. Let's get recognized by the chair.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, so now that the funding has been approved, do you know when the contract will go into effect? And do you have any idea what the timeline looks like for actually developing the info?
So I was literally just sent today the contract to take a look at. So I have not even had a chance to look at the contract today. I was at in-service training all day today. So We'll begin the process of reviewing that internally in the police department to make sure that the contract language meets our expectations and needs, and then we'll obviously send that off to the city attorney for review as well to make sure that from a legal perspective there that everything is good to go. Once the contract is signed, we're looking at roughly a 12-month period as our goal to try to do the update. So, I think for all intents and purposes, as we're getting a little bit deeper into 2020 here and a few things continue to dedicate our attention, we're looking to get this done throughout the year in 2021. We'll work with the vendor to identify that timeline and how we're going to break down the project to manageable phases and prioritize those policies that need attention first versus those that are in good shape right now and can wait till the latter stages of the process. And then, of course, as I mentioned in the council meeting, we'll look to incorporate opportunities for public feedback, community feedback into the process. And again, I think that that's a conversation that I'm open to having with the council, what exactly that process looks like, and so forth. So that's the general gist of the timeline at this point in time. And again, once we get the contract actually signed and have that first meeting with the company, we'll get a better idea of what that timeline looks like. And obviously, I'm committed to keeping the council in the loop throughout the process as well. So, and as with anything, if there are any questions in between meetings or seeing me, whatever the case may be, you have my contact information, and you're always welcome to give me a call with questions.
Great, thank you.
Anything from you, Tom?
Chief, was this manual redone because of it being old or because of what's going on in the country today?
Well, the primary driver is because it's been a while since it's actually had a cover-to-cover revision and review. Chief Blotter attempted to do that in about 2015, 2016, and internal work group spent the better part of a year unable to accomplish that due to a variety of other commitments that continue to pull at them. As you know, our department, the size of it doesn't allow us to pull people from their daily duties, so to speak, and focus solely on one project for a considerable amount of time. So that's really what's driving this, is that we just don't have the resources internally to devote exclusively to a project of this scope. But clearly, the events that have happened in 2020 and even prior to that are also a factor in this. And I think that we have learned, in particularly recently, that there's some value in having sound policies, and clearly there's also value in finding opportunities for community input in those policies. And also, it probably may not be the best practice to have a police department develop, review, and revise its own policies, and it may be better to have an outside assistance with that. So that's kind of the backstory there, Alder Clouder, and hopefully that answered your question. If not, I can certainly add to it.
I have one other one as well, and that has to do with the group that's doing the process, the groups that's doing it. I know they've done, maybe you've probably heard what maybe Sun Prairie, Middleton, they've had done, or departments they've done. And do you know, during the process, do they speak to the public or businesses, or interviewing, I'll even say other, I don't want to really say other city employees, I started to say that, other city employees or businesses or residents in the community? Do you know if they, I'm on the front end, as you can tell now. I'm on the front end of this thing, not on the back end, where you have a committee and then they look at what they put out and then you discuss it. That's not where I'm going. I'm more on the front end of this. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know to the lengths that they'll reach out to specific, businesses or Chamber of Commerce or those sorts of things. It's one of the things that we'll be having a conversation with them about is what has their experience been with their direct level of outreach. But regardless, we're going to look to carve out our own opportunities for outreach. I think that there are a few ways that we can accomplish that, and I think that looking at multiple ways to accomplish that level of outreach is probably the way to go versus one specific way, i.e. the vendor reaching out or, just only soliciting, public information or public feedback through an online form. I think we'll look to do a multi-layered approach, and again, that's one of those things that we haven't talked deeply with the company about what steps specifically they're going to take. We see that also as us having a significant role in performing that outreach piece internally.
Okay, I'll call on myself then. I have talked with Chad about some concerns that I've had about this company being at this point the end-all be-all for this type of product, which is somewhat worrisome for me. I definitely do not want a cut-and-paste product. What I had suggested to him was the possibility of putting together a little bit of an oversight committee, particularly using folks that are in and working professionally in the communities of color that can represent those communities more fully than anybody at City Hall can, and probably even more so than we can. I know the police themselves and some of the city staff are out in community quite a lot and have a reasonable perspective of what happens in community. But I believe that people that are working with social justice issues have a perspective that can help the police set policies and figure these things out more than the police themselves can, or any of us can, or the company itself can. So I did make a suggestion to formalize a little bit of a committee to help go through the process and to keep an eye on the daily training materials that are also a product of this. Just because of, like Tom said, so much that's going on in the country, and we need to really stay on top of things. I know our department is way ahead of so many departments, but I think we want to be a leader. We want others to look to us and say, by golly, they're doing a great job. I think we need to do it the way they're doing it. That would be an ideal for me, and I think that's probably pretty close to an ideal that Chad has as well for the department. So I would like to formally put in that suggestion that we talk about a committee to help look at this whole process.
So as I mentioned, not only to you, Alder Krause, on your call, but throughout the meeting, I'm open to having conversations about how we accomplish that important piece. And, we're learning more and more about equity and looking at policies throughout the city, not just police department policies with that equity plan. And I certainly can't represent every single perspective, from my experience, personally or professionally. So, where we can look to do that, I'm certainly open to it and finding the best ways to accomplish that. With, the ultimate goal that we want to try to keep a relatively compact timeline, not so compact as to squeeze out the opportunity for input, but not, taking multiple years to get a project of this magnitude. So I think there's a way to balance both of those interests. It's not an either or problem. And I'm open to having a conversation Again, I think once we have that first meeting with the vendor, we'll have a better idea, one, of timeline, and two, of ideas and experiences that they may be able to offer as that outreach comes into play.
Appreciate that. Anything else from anyone? If not, then I thank you for sharing with us today. And we can go on to our next agenda item.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. The employee handbook update is proposal to update section 6.6 for the carryover of additional compensatory and vacation time for Fmla events in the following year.
Yeah, so sometimes we have employees who request to go out on FMLA in the fall, and so their event isn't until after the new year. So we have maximums in which employees, non-represented employees, can carry over vacation time and comp time. What we're looking to do is, right now, how it works is if there's someone having an FMLA event, they can email the city administrator, and on a case-by-case basis, he approves the carryover of more than the maximum for vacation and comp time to use for FMLA, or for that FMLA event. What we're trying to do is...
Can I stop you for just a second to
Sure.
explain what FMLA is?
Yeah, family medical leave. So this is, people can go out for surgeries, babies, adoptions. There's a whole, it has to be medically certified, but it's up to 12 weeks that employees can get. It's a federal and Wisconsin law. And basically, you know, if we're on a calendar year, so if someone's going to be going out on an FMLA event in, say, February, and they have all of this vacation and comp time stored up, ideally it'd be nice to be able to carry over more of that time to help pay for that time that they're going to be out, because we don't have paid FMLA time, meaning they have to use any of their accrued time, sick time, vacation time, but we don't have any paid leave for employees, fully paid. So right now, employees just email the city administrator on a case-by-case basis. He approves it. What we want to get rid of is that we want to be able to define exactly what it is instead of on a case-by-case and based on a city administrator approval. So what we're proposing is allowing for employees to carry over up to 180 hours of combined comp time and vacation time to use for any FMLA event that they have the following year. And they would have that whole year to use that additional carryover time. So what I can do is share my screen and give you an opportunity to actually read the updated language. So just one moment here. Okay, so you should see up on your screen, what I'm going to do is, let me move this. All right, we're going to review. I'm going to go to the first change. So you're going to see here under vacation carryover, let me scroll down a bit. So right now it does say that the city administrator will approve any carryover beyond 1 work week of vacation time, and carryover approval is done on a case-by-case basis. So what we'd like to do, and Pat's on board with this, is get rid of that sentence, and then we're going to go to the next change here. And then I'll come back to this one because I want to explain this one. This one's a little different, so just one second. Go to the 6.6. Okay, here's the actual section that we're adding. So all non-represented city employees are eligible to request a carryover up to a total of 180 hours of combined comp time and or vacation time for the purposes of an approved FMLA event in the following calendar year. So the 180 hours includes existing vacation and comp time carryover maximum, so it's not in addition. And then all requests are, of course, submitted to the department head and the city administrator for approval before it's allowed. The above referenced 180-hour FMLA carryover is intended to permit only a one-time carryover into the following calendar year. And if for some reason something happened, that person didn't end up needing to use that FMLA time, they would still have that year to use it. That would be really rare, but if someone maybe had a scheduled surgery and at the last minute it got canceled and they weren't going to be able to do it for whatever reason, the fact is that even if they carried over that 180 hours, we'd want them to still be able to use that 180 hours. So this doesn't happen very often. It's really we probably have maybe 2 employees per year that email about having a need to carry over for FMLA events. Really, all we're trying to do is put an exact number on this and not just leave it as on a case by case, and then having so many fluctuation of how many vacation and comp time hours different people are carrying over. So to go back up, oh yeah, Gabriella, did you have a question? Oh,
You're muted.
I guess we can bring this in a moment, but going back up to the original change under vacation.
yeah, let's go back up there.
I guess my one concern would be completely eliminating the ability to make exceptions, because I have to imagine that situations arise, like for example, the clerk's office is super overburdened right now. They're working a lot. I have to imagine that maybe someone in the clerk's office can't use their vacation time because there's literally too much to do. And I would hate for them to not be able to carry it over, you know, given the fact that it's like a circumstance of their work. So I just worry about like completely eliminating any sort of ability for the city administrator to approve a carryover for an unspecified reason.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, we can certainly revisit that with Pat. This provides some consistency with staff. I mean, employees are still able to carry over at least up to 1 work week of vacation, but this is separate. This is just regarding FMLA usage and being able to carry over that additional time. But I see what you're saying about how it eliminates that opportunity to, but in the same instance, it gives them that up to 180 hours that they can still carry over. So in addition to the 1 work week, they get up to 180 hours of combined vacation and comp time. So they're still able to carry it over, but it would only be for a FMLA event. Let me get you to that other change here on the comp time, just one moment here. And so when we had our legal review of the comp time, we were really silent on what happens to comp time for non-exempt employees. All we did is add it in with the current practices, which is employees who are non-exempt, meaning they don't earn overtime, they can accrue up to 90 hours of banked comp time and they can carry it over. It's not paid out to them at the end of the year like it is for police and fire. So we just basically spelled out what the current practice is. It was missing in this section, whether they get it paid out or whether it carries over. So that's the only change here. And then in the other section, you'll notice we just added, except pursuant to section 6.6 regarding the carryover of up to 60 hours. Because again, if it's an FMLA event, we're proposing to allow for more carryover. I can certainly run that by, we could still keep the 6.6 and have these 2, and then maybe going back up to vacation, maybe we still leave that caveat in there rather than taking it out.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the question, because I just have to imagine that there are certain situations that arise that are directly related to somebody's work responsibilities. This pandemic is just a great example of an extreme situation that might lead someone to not be able to take all their vacation time. I don't know. It's just one scenario that came to mind that I thought might be something to consider.
You bet.
Any questions for you, Tom?
Were you done or no?
Yeah, yep. Yes.
This is all non-union employees, right?
Exactly, all non-represented employees.
Am I thinking right? Okay.
Yep.
I guess I like the idea that we have something that you get to a certain level and then you either total out or you max out. Because I don't think it's right for the city administrator to make that decision in some cases. Because here's my point. He can make a decision for somebody in the clerk's office, and yet in somebody in parks, he says no to. I'm trying to take that away. I think it's like you have a certain amount of hours, like you said, a certain amount of hours. It's not a reflection on him at all. It just kind of, for the next administrator, for the next person, you kind of take that out of their hands, say, look, this is what the book says, it's 180 hours, whatever. I'm going to ask you, since you've been here, I think I know the answer, to what Gabrielle said, I don't think we have employees that can never use their time. To me, in the years I've always heard, we haven't run into that. Now tell me different if I'm wrong.
This year is unique. So with COVID, a lot of people aren't using their vacation time because there's nowhere to really go. They can't leave anywhere. So we're encouraging employees to use their time, their comp time, vacation time, but not everyone is following that and are curious if we're going to allow for additional carryover given everything that's going on this year. And because we don't know what 2021 holds and what the future is going to be like, we're really not advising, Pat's not advising at this time to extend any carryovers. So we're encouraging people to use their time.
But up until now,
It's never.
there hasn't been correct me if I'm wrong, there hasn't been a problem, has there? I mean, COVID's kind of a different deal.
It is.
It's a different animal. But up until, prior to that,
Yeah,
I don't
prior
think
to
we
that, we
could.
haven't had an issue, no, of people being able to use their time. Yep. Yeah, this was to help us be consistent, because you're right, I mean, we'll get emails from different people to the city administrator, and so for him, it's just nice to know, okay, here's the threshold, here's what we're approving, and it's not coming to him as a special case by case, which sometimes you're not being consistent with employees in those cases.
That's where I'm going. It's called morale.
Mm-hmm.
And let's go one other step here. If I max out at 180 hours, and then next year I retire, can I get paid out on those hours if they weren't used?
Yes, any comp time hours that weren't used are always paid out to you when you leave employment, whether you term or retire.
Take vacation too, if I'm not.
Absolutely. Yep, vacation, comp time, personal days, sick time when you retire from the city.
Okay.
So, yep.
This is what we're currently going through, just a question I have, okay. Because of COVID, did any employees get time, or because of what's going on in the country, or that wasn't a part of anything that you know of, was it, between the governor or the president or anything? There's nobody given time because of what we're going through, is there?
No, so Families First Coronavirus Response Act gave employees emergency paid sick leave, but it has to be used for COVID reasons by the end of December. So if it's not used, it's not added to their bank to use at another time.
And I don't think you can, you just answered it. You can't add that, and I don't think it's either, God willing, they don't have to use it, because we don't want them to have it. But if they did have if they did get sick, they could use it for that, right?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, a question that I have, kind of a scenario that would involve a pregnancy, say. What is the length of time that someone could be out due to a pregnancy now, and how much might that potentially be extended with this policy? So what is the total time that someone might be gone from the job?
Yep, good question. So you're only allowed up to 12 weeks for FMLA for any of the reasons listed under the FMLA law. So this doesn't necessarily extend their time away, but it gives them the time to be able to help pay for their absence while they're out, because folks only get so much vacation and so much sick time. And so if they're going to be out for 12 weeks total and they're not going to take part in the short-term disability, they're going to have to pay for that time that they're away, because we don't have any kind of like paid parental leave or anything like that. So this will just be able to give them the means to be able to pay for their time away and then still be able to take time off later in the year for non-FMLA events.
Okay, so they're not going to be off the job any longer.
No, that's not the goal. The goal is really just to be able to help them pay for that time that they're away. Now, people can take longer than 12 weeks if they have the time. So, I mean, to say that everyone's going to have 180 hours to carry over, that's a very large amount of hours. And I'd say the majority of our employees don't have banks like that to be able to roll over and use. But we thought that would be a good number to allow for employees to carry over.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else from anyone?
Dorothy, I got one other one. Where'd you come up with the 180 hours? Was that,
That's
is that
double.
taken out of the union contract?
Nope. So that's double the 90 hours that our non-exempt employees can accrue for a maximum for comp time. So non-exempt employees that don't earn overtime can accrue up to 90 hours of comp time that they can continue to carry over every year. So this just doubles that number. That goes from the 90 to the 180. The union contracts actually are paid out their comp time and don't have any mention about this. What we would be looking to do is if fire and police wanted to, we could go into an MOU and offer the same exact thing that we're offering here for non-represented employees, because we often get requests from police, for example, on, I have an Fmla event, can I carry over time? Well, the contract is silent on that right now, so we would have to, put some type of MOU together, but we could, that would be our goal, is to have consistency across not just non-reps, but our bargaining units too.
Anything else? If not, we can move on to item 6 is report from department.
Okay, I'm going to stop the share. Before we move forward, Gabriella, are you okay with, I guess is the team okay with this change? I guess I just need the approval and the second, or if you want me to take back that vacation carryover and talk more with Pat about leaving that section in. I just want to make sure I don't accept any changes that weren't really approved.
No, I mean, if you feel comfortable with it, I trust your assessment. I just wanted to ask the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to share again. One moment. So I sent you out the HR report. My computer's trying to do an update right now. The HR report, I thought it'd be easier just to give you a snapshot of the year, because, you're a newer committee, and we kind of started at the beginning when COVID was all hitting. So I thought it would be helpful to see all of the hires that we've had this year. I kind of just started out with the permanent, part-time, full-time hires. These are the ones that are benefit eligible. And then we have a limited term seasonal hourly hires. So, we have not hired a ton this year. Our turnover has actually been pretty low. We have had to hold off on filling some positions due to COVID, so like our planning intern, administrative intern, and all of our summer recreation positions. Otherwise, typically in a year, we don't hold off on filling any positions. We have a current recruitment in progress, the transportation engineer. This is to replace Bill Belkey, who was promoted to Director of Public Works. We're also going to be asking for authorization to post for a police officer vacancy at our PFC meeting next week. We just took poll workers down. I guess we're doing really great on that. So today, actually, that posting came down. So that's good to hear. Turnover this year, so I highlighted our turnover of permanent, part-time, full-time positions, and there are reasons. I'm not giving names, obviously, but this kind of gives you a snapshot of why people are leaving the city of Fitchburg. So, everything from closer commutes to actually enrolling in the police academy to we had one retirement so far. We had somebody relocate to a different part of the state, and even a couple that received a full-time job that were part-time employees. So the comparison of the prior years is really the full year turnover rate. The 5% is as of when I pulled this on Friday, I believe it was. But we're retaining, so that's wonderful news. We've completed a lot this year, and so I kind of highlighted all of those, and I sent that your way. A lot of new policies, A lot of COVID stuff. We actually just updated the rules and regulations for the Police and Fire Commission, so I think that's going to be coming council's way for some input. We're really excited to bring that forward. It's been about 10 years since that was actually updated. And then we sent out 2 surveys to all staff. These are anonymous surveys to ask first about their satisfaction with HR services, and then also about the city benefits. If you're interested, I'm more than happy to send you the results of those. They're kind of eye-opening. So yeah, I'll send it out to the personnel team. You can take a peek. We also created a new free employee recognition tool. It's tied in with our NeoGov software, which is our onboarding, our HR intranet, and our performance evaluation system. So it's really nice because you can actually just, with a few clicks, share some praise about an employee with their supervisor and their supervisor's supervisor. So it's instant. It's really nice. And then we're continuing to work with IT on going completely paperless. So all of our paper personnel files will all be electronic. I look forward to having this completed in 2021. It's a lot of work. And then we are continuing on with the city safety team. We have been meeting for, a year already, and we've been doing some pretty cool things. We are right now working on updating the employee safety manual, which hasn't been updated for probably another 10 years or so. And then also putting together safety training plans for new hires, because when new hires come on board, we really don't have a very strong safety training for them. And then our Diversity and Inclusion and Employee Resource Group meets for the second time tomorrow, so super excited about this. We're going to just kind of define who we are. We're going to talk about some terms, talk about kind of what our mission is and what kind of short-term and long-term initiatives that we want to take on. So we have about 12 employees from all different departments. We've got police represented, fire represented, public works, planning, you name it. We have almost every department, so it's really exciting. And then future projects, I had proposed in the HR budget for 2021 diversity inclusion training for all staff. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. And then when I sent out the benefit survey, there was a lot of comments on paid parental leave. City of Madison, City of Sun Prairie all offer at least 6 weeks of paid parental leave for employees going out, having a baby or adoption. And so I just wanted to kind of look at a cost-benefit analysis of what this would look like for Fitchburg if this was something we could potentially do. And then also looking at the creation of a donated vacation policy. Apparently Fitchburg used to have such a policy. This would be for example, employees going through hardships. Maybe they're going through medical crisis or different things. And so we have some staff that maybe have a high vacation balance that would be willing to donate their vacation time. We'd have to have a really strong policy and practice in place to be able to make sure this is used properly. But I think it's a really great program to have for employees that are in hard times. And then the city succession plan is something that needs to be worked on. And then lastly, looking at an opportunity for 360 feedback when we do our performance evaluations. Right now it's very one-sided. It's just the manager rating the employee. So what can we do to also have ratings come from peers and also from the employee to the supervisor. So just trying to look at other ways we can provide more meaningful evaluations. So that's just a glimpse of the things kind of above and beyond what we do on the daily. But it's Amy as our HR specialist and we're just a 2-woman department and we love HR. So if you ever have questions or you have recommendations or thoughts, we are all ears. Yeah, Gabriella.
Gabriella?
This all looks great. Excited to see all the things that are potentially coming down the line. So that'll be great to explore. I wanted to ask about the transportation engineer hiring process, because I know that, I'm just worried about Bill having to do 2 jobs for such a long period of time. So I'm curious if that's stalled at all. Are we in an interview process, or where do we stand on that?
Yeah, so we actually already had a recruitment and we went through interviews and we did not make a successful hire. So we had to repost. So we just reposted. We are having a heck of a time getting applicants for this position. It's a very low number of people that apply. So at first we thought it was our pay that was the issue, but we did a survey salary to see what comparable communities were paying their engineers that have the PE certification, and we seem to be pretty competitive. So we're going to try, we've revamped the job posting. We're not necessarily calling this a senior anymore. We've reduced the years of experience as well. Still requiring someone with some experience, but we don't need such a senior level. So doing the best that we can to really make this more enticing and exciting, and we're doing some different outreach this time. So we look forward to the position closing at the end of the month. I'm hopeful that we have at least a good, strong handful of candidates. I don't know why we struggle so much with engineers, but we really do. So I'm really optimistic that we'll have no problem filling this position the second time around. Yep. Yeah.
And for that, I'm going to put you in touch with folks that I'm on the MPO committee, which talks about transportation a lot. That would be a group that might have some sense of people that might be interested in applying.
That would be great. Thank you.
I'll help you get in touch with them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any questions from you, Tom? One question that I had mentioning summer recreation positions not being hired, or positions that have not been hired. Is there money on the table for positions that were not hired that might be available during this budget season?
That's a great question. That's definitely a Misty question, but I think that any money that came from the savings of the hourly was for any kind of COVID relief that we had earlier on that is not being covered by the CARES Act. So if you recall, before the Families First Coronavirus Response Act kicked in, there was the city offered to basically had a paid leave policy for anyone that got sick before the new law kicked in April. So that occurred for about a month, and I think we had maybe a handful of employees that actually either had what seemed to be symptoms or had family members that appeared to be sick, so they were able to use that time. So I want to say that money has already been allocated to COVID, but I'm not positive on that. I can certainly check and get back to you.
I think we'll be interested in the upcoming budget season, whether, and I would guess that the mayor's budget, if there is anything, will eat it up anyway. So, next question that I had in the turnover section was, is there a breakdown for each year or whatever of the various types of turnover, management, police, fire, I don't know if how deep we want to go into different departments, but it'd be interesting, at least on the management level and what I would call worker bee level, what that balance was like.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I right now in all my annual reports, I pull turnover by race, by department, but not necessarily by management versus non-management positions. So I could certainly pull that. That wouldn't be hard to do. Are you thinking like a look back of the last 5 years or so? Or not as much?
I know that we lost a lot of management level people. I'd like to be sure that we turn that trend around.
Right.
The last question that I had was, you mentioned city succession plan. I'm not certain what that is.
Yeah, so this is a plan. So this basically has us look at all of our current employees to see who's at retirement age, what kind of skills do they have, are they going to be leaving soon? So it helps us put together a plan in place before people actually leave. So it's being more proactive and not reactive, which we are now. So sometimes our department heads have an idea of when people are going to be leaving, but if we know someone's going to be leaving in a couple of years, we can have them do some cross-training and help us be more prepared. It doesn't mean that we just place the person that they've been cross-trained with into the position. I mean, we still are going to go through a competitive process, but it means that we at least have an idea of when vacancies are going to come up, and we've set people, we've shared knowledge and information before the person's out the door. So it's an actual plan where you can see, X many people are at retirement age in the police department. And then, I think some of our departments, actually, police and fire, for example, have have those statistics and are looking at that on a regular basis. I know we bring those to the PFC, their staffing reports, but we don't have anything right now on a citywide plan. So it would be great to have in place for sure. Then we could better plan for vacancies.
Sounds like an excellent plan.
Yeah.
Anything else for Sarah? All in, all done? Then what announcements do we have?
I don't have any announcements right now.
Anticipated meetings coming up?
Yes, so we will meet again on November 11th, I believe. Let me just check. I'm going to stop sharing, and thank you. I think it's November 11th.
You don't want us to see your whole calendar?
Oh, can you see my calendar? That's okay. November 11th at 5 p.m.
Okay,
Hi, Dorothy, can I ask one other question?
absolutely.
It just thought of it. There's evaluations probably done for our employees. Is that yearly, or is that every 6 months, or what is that?
Their 1-year anniversary is when performance evaluations are completed.
Okay, and I think I know the answer to this, but so the department head writes that up, whatever, and then does the employee have an opportunity to respond to it in writing if he wishes or not?
Absolutely, yep. So an employee who maybe disagrees or wants to provide more information can actually, there's a section on the performance evaluation where they can actually type, or they can even upload a document sharing their own perspective and how they feel about the performance evaluation form. Yep.
Anything else from anyone? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move adjournment.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.